Welcome to St. Louis Presents.
Oh, and Debbie, I have a very important question for you.
Yes.
When does spring start again?
I don't know, but I am ready for it.
It's been something, hasn't it?
I really do love snow, I have to admit, but I do not like bitter cold temperatures.
A TV weathercaster yesterday, I heard him say that in January we had something like 2 weeks without any sunshine.
I know, it makes me so crabby.
That can really affect you psychologically, don't you think?
Oh, absolutely.
Well, speaking of that, and this has nothing to do with the weather, but we're going to meet a couple of people from Psychological Associates, and they're doing a workshop on emotional intelligence, and we're going to find out how that can benefit you in the workplace.
Well, and here we are in the new year, and a lot of people make their New Year's resolutions, and maybe people make resolutions to lose weight and eat better and and be healthier. Well, we're going to talk to several people who maybe they're disruptors in this field, being a little more healthy and finding ways, with healthcare coverage in the future.
That sounds good. And we also have a guest today that has something in common with you and I. Working in radio.
I know, we're going to have a bunch of radio people
First,
here.
I'm going to ask him why he did that. But the reason he's here today is that he's written a children's book, and it's called The Watering Hole, so we'll find out about that.
Absolutely. So all of that and more coming your way on this edition of St. Louis Presents. Stay with us. Well, if you would like to build better leadership skills this year, and who doesn't want better leadership skills, Psychological Associates has a new program that just may be able to help, Steve.
Well, Patricia Bagsby and Clay Hildebrand are here to tell us more about the Emotional Intelligence Workshop and how it works.
Thanks for joining us. Steve and I have many, many questions.
Great.
First of all, how do you define emotional intelligence? And I guess, could you give us examples of, in the workplace, what it would look like for somebody who doesn't have emotional intelligence versus someone who does?
Sure. So very broadly, emotional intelligence is a skill. It's your skill at recognizing your own emotions internally, and then the emotions that are expressed from other people.
Is that what I grew up hearing, what being an adult is? Like having,
Well, even in adulthood, sometimes we struggle with it, right? And so when we have people that have high emotional intelligence, that usually looks like I'm in control of my emotions, I have the right display of my emotions, but not only that, but I can recognize when is it a good time to talk to you about something. If I see, oh, Debbie looks like she's having a bad day, maybe I hold this discussion for tomorrow. That's a sign of high emotional intelligence.
What surprises me about all this is the fact that you're doing this means that's a problem.
It is something that we can all improve to some degree, but we have found that it's also one of those things that actually links to higher performance in the organization setting. So about 50% of your performance on the job is related to emotional intelligence. And now that we know that, we look at then how do we improve it for other people? And so that's what we've done.
Well, I imagine companies may be even more interested in this than ever because with a tight job market, everybody's looking for workers. People aren't going to stick around anymore if they're not being treated well.
Right.
Yeah, there's a real war on talent right now. So what companies are coming to us for is trying to determine what's the best person to hire, what's the best person who will fit the role that we have, and if there are some developmental issues, what might those be? And they may come down to interpersonal skills or leadership behaviors, which again ties into what Tricia's talking about.
Is this whole emotional intelligence thing, though, does that apply to everyone from the boss down to the lowest office worker and everyone in between?
Absolutely. Every single person in the organization.
Our focus typically, though, is kind of that mid-level manager and up.
Mm-hmm. That's where we focus, yes. Assessing and training and coaching in those areas.
Is there a reason for that?
It's just our sweet spot. It's where I think a lot of companies get the biggest bang for the buck because you typically have your senior leaders at that level and they influence everything throughout the organization.
So can you give us some examples of maybe some tips for our viewers that they might be able to think about or work on to have greater emotional intelligence?
Absolutely. I think one of the first things to do is to really think about it. We are taught from very young age how to behave. That's the outward expression. Not very often do we think about what precedes behavior, and those are your thoughts and your feelings, all that internal dialogue. So to really get in touch with that first, recognize what's that voice in your head sound like? Is it a friend or a foe? And figure out what are those triggers for emotions.
It's just kind of what we might think of as people skills. Is that simplifying it too much?
It's a great way to, I think it's a term that makes sense to most people. And we talk a lot about interpersonal skills, people skills. You know, oftentimes they say that people are hired for their technical ability, but where they get in trouble often ties back to people skills.
Now, do some people just some people just naturally have high emotional intelligence and some people just have none?
Debbie, yeah.
We noticed that about you.
Absolutely. Just like many individual differences, there are going to be people at all ends of the spectrum on this. So we've got people who show up and just seem like they know how to do it. And then there's some people that struggle a little bit more, and that's where we can help.
I guess you could be your own worst enemy then, if you don't have those skills.
In many ways. Most of our blind spots have to do with this type of thing. Emotional intelligence can be a big key to uncovering what are those ways that you get in your own way.
Now, I don't know if this has anything to do with it, but I notice this in workplaces and just with people in general, that a lot of people have a hard time understanding that, like, if you're doing something or saying something to me, it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with me. You may be having a terrible day, and you're just taking it out on me. I noticed that causes a lot of conflict in relationships, both professionally and personally. Does that have anything to do with emotional intelligence?
Absolutely. I think that it fits in. And if you think about, you know, the nature of work, you have a bunch of people who are basically strangers to individuals, to each other. You throw them into an environment and say, play nice. And sometimes we have a tendency to take things as our perspective first. And in that case, if I have an interaction with somebody, I'm going to think, what is it about me here rather than them? So this helps you see both sides, their self and other.
And if you don't know someone very well, it's harder to read what they mean, what their emotional intelligence level is, isn't it? If you don't know them, sometimes you don't know how to take it.
Right. Well, even if you know them pretty well, some people are just very emotionally controlled, and you don't really get a sense of what is going on. And we tend not to ask because we do assume that it has something to do with me.
Oh, she's acting that way because she doesn't like me. So when psychological associates would a company call you and you come in and do a workshop for the employees, or how does it work?
Yes, for the emotional intelligence workshop, we work with the organization. We have about 20 people in a workshop at a time, so they all know each other, likely have worked together.
And I would think everybody's idiosyncrasies are different, so you kind of have to tailor it for the individual, what their emotional intelligence is or how they rate.
So a lot of what we do, the model that we work with is about being responsive to others and, as you said, tailoring it. So even in this emotional intelligence plus having that responsiveness to other people, that's right. We'll look at, you know, how do you need to display in this setting with these people the appropriate behaviors.
And much of the tailoring is really about what is the company trying to achieve. So what issues are they running into as opposed to the individual.
Right, and that's where culture can come in.
Right.
In one culture, an emotional display might be quite fine. You know, if you think about healthcare workers and being able to relate to people on that one-to-one kind of level. And then if you think of people who are out, police officers have to display a different set of emotional and behavioral outcomes.
And percentage-wise, does everybody get it? Does everybody improve?
We see a lot of improvement, right? So anyone who comes and does coaching or training with us is going to come have a variety of goals, right? So some people will make big change, some a little.
I have some former bosses I'd like to send your way.
I don't think you can volunteer people.
Oh.
Right.
Well, Tricia and Clay, thank you so much for the information. It's really interesting, and I'm sure that you will have plenty of takers for your emotional intelligence workshops and all of the other work that you do in finding the right matches for people and employees. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, we're going to take a short break here. You can see the information there on the screen. If you need to get in touch with Psychological Associates, stay with us. We'll be right back.
Listen, I realize that I'm not perfect, but it all really started to change because you judge me for having a problem. No one is going to know that I need help. I need help. I know that no one is going to judge me for having a problem. I realize that I'm not perfect, but it all really started to change, because you listen.
This is the story of a boy who is very sensitive to lights and sounds. So he built secret hiding places where nothing could get in. The boy didn't like looking people in the eye. It made him feel uncomfortable. One day, he found out he had something called autism. His family got him help, and slowly, he learned how to live with it better.
Early intervention can make a lifetime of difference. Learn the signs at autismspeaks.org.
Welcome back. Well, if you're, like me, trying to focus more on your health and being healthier in 2019, my next guests just may be able to help you out. Joining me, Doctors Alethea Eller and Jason Wibbenmeyer, the co-founders of Innovative Health Partners. Thanks for joining me.
Hi. Thanks for having us.
Now, Innovative Health Partners, I like that right away. Let's just start with the premise that we're all starting 2019 wanting to be healthier, because I think that is probably people's number one New Year's resolution. I want to lose weight. I want to eat better. A lot of us don't make it through the first month. But how important is that when we're talking about the healthcare system, our overall health, that we need to start with that ownership of taking better care of ourselves?
Right. So when it comes to the healthcare system, I feel like it slacks when it comes to supporting our patients in their health goals when it comes to New Year resolutions. And so when it comes to supporting, I feel like having a partner in that is really powerful, and that's where we step in with our patients, is taking that partnership and asking and being a part of that journey with them.
A lot of people have said, oh, these last few years, I mean, I can speak for myself too, have been really tough. Whatever side of the aisle you're on, people are arguing, family get-togethers aren't quite the same. There's a lot of stress out there. Are you seeing that in your practice as well?
Absolutely. I feel like stress is always there. The research that keeps coming out clinically about our physical health is that the majority of our issues are really coming from chronic long-term stress, and it's huge and profound impact on our physical body. I can't say that it just started 2 years ago, or there's always an impact of the emotions that we're carrying around and how they affect us physically. And I think that's always there. It's really important to acknowledge that stress eating really happens, and when we're stressed, we not only act out, but we sometimes bury our stuff down. And when we bury our stuff down, it can physically hurt parts of our body. And that's one of the unique approaches that our practice delivers, is really tapping into how these suppressed, sometimes suppressed emotions, how they're really affecting us at a deeper level, and possibly our expression of health that we're experiencing.
Yeah, on my little journey of trying to, get myself together, and the effects of stress, I'm learning more about cortisol and the effect that has.
Yes.
Oh yeah, cortisol it's a big buzzword that people know about because it's a stress hormone. It's an important one that we need, but the thing to think about is that if we have it on overdrive, it's always being pumped out because we live in this cortisol output state because we're always stressed and we have all these stimuli coming towards us. That's when you get in trouble because it has it's a big player in other hormones, and then also our metabolism as well.
Yeah.
So we're talking about chronic conditions and stress and cortisol. So people generally, they're going through their life and then suddenly something goes wrong. So they go to the doctor and the doctor treats that one thing, maybe writes a prescription, and then off they go. So how would you approach that situation differently?
Right. One of the things that we see is that in that timeline that you just laid out, like I was healthy, and I got sick. That's actually, when you look at it, not really how it's happening. There's testing that will show that your sickness was actually forming and developing before that acute symptom showed up, for the most part. So what seems like, it came out of nowhere, really didn't come out of nowhere. It's just sometimes the testing isn't done, or the testing you've been doing hasn't been sensitive enough to catch it. That's very unique to functional medicine. A lot of the testing that we specialize in is to do earlier detection testing. And when we run even standard labs, we're going to be running them with tighter parameters, looking for optimal function. We're not looking for disease and illness. Of course, if we find it, that's actually where our medical partners are fantastic in that arena. We're looking for, where are you trending? How can we better support you so you don't end up in that crisis state? And that is one of the goals at our forefront for our patients.
A lot of the time, people are having chronic problems and maybe they put it off for a long time. But we also are having this conversation all the time about pre-existing conditions. It's in the news all the time as we talk about this transition or whatever's happening with our, national health care. How does that impact your practice, or how does that impact some of the people that you treat?
Greatly. So we are all about prevention, and that's why we incorporate lifestyle modifications in our functional medicine practice. So much money is put forward into chronic health care, and the problem with that and the incongruency is that a lot of our deaths are caused by chronic health issues. And so we're putting so much money and attention towards that, but there's so much support and evidence to show that prevention actually does work. It's just that we haven't shifted as a healthcare industry towards thinking that way. So we want our patients to think a little bit differently about their health. So if you start going towards that Tums in the cabinet, or if you have certain symptoms, start asking yourself, why? Like, what did I just eat? Am I in a stressful situation right now? If you start thinking about it in a little bit of a different way, then you're going to start, thinking more of that functional medicine approach that we incorporate, that is really ultimately trying to figure out what the root cause and the underlying issue is to physiologically make those changes.
Because I think, unfortunately, one of the traps a lot of us have fallen into is we just expect somebody's going to give us a pill and it'll go away and then it's fine. Mm-hmm. But what you're saying is do a little thinking on the front end about how you're living your life and what you can do.
Right, and I call it medicinal matchmaking. It's you take this for that, and then sometimes we can fall into that trap of just keep taking the medications, which work and can be great for a lot of reasons. But we are on a mission to really support our patients' health from a chronic standpoint when it comes to prevention.
Well, it is Innovative Health Partners, and it's doctors Alethea Eller and Jason Wibbenmeyer. So maybe it's not too late to make a New Year's resolution, right? For us to all just think a little bit more about our current health habits and pull it together. There's some information right there, the website and the phone number. They are located in Webster Groves, Innovative Health Partners. Thank you both for joining me, and we are going to check in with Steve Potter for news headlines.
Thanks, Debbie. More options for travelers are coming to St. Louis Lambert International Airport this summer. Sun Country Airlines will launch nonstop flights to Portland, Oregon and Minneapolis-St. Paul, Minnesota starting in June. Sun Country began offering flights from St. Louis to Fort Myers and Tampa, Florida this past fall. The new flights are part of the airline's largest edition of routes in the company's history, and you can learn more at suncountry.com. Just 2 years after hosting the 2017 Bridgestone NHL Winter Classic, St. Louis has been chosen to host another prominent NHL event. The 2020 Honda NHL All-Star Weekend is coming to the Enterprise Center next January. The weekend will include the All-Star Skills Competition, an All-Star Game, as well as hockey-themed events, entertainment, and activities. It will all take place through January 24th. That's the 24th through the 26th next year. And you can stay up to date on ticket information and find out more at stlouisblues.com/allstar. U.S. Youth Soccer has awarded the Midwest Regional Championships to St. Louis for the first time. In 2021, more than 220 teams of boys and girls from 14 states will come to St. Louis for the 6-day event. The Missouri Youth Soccer Association and St. Louis Sports Commission will serve as the host organizations, and games will be played at Creve Coeur Park Soccer Complex and Lou Fuse Athletic Soccer Complex in Maryland Heights. You can find out more at usyouthsoccer.org. And the St. Louis Aquarium is on track to open later this year. And recently, STL TV's Angela Sharp had the chance to check out their progress and find out what we can look forward to. Watch this.
And you did mention that there's a lot of requirements you have to stay within to try to keep the essence of the train station back from the 1800s.
That's correct. Really the only structure that we impacted was the second floor, where we had to remove to allow the tanks to tower through to the second floor. For the most part, the train shed itself is staying intact.
Which is pretty impressive. And when we go to put fish in here, I feel like, you know, making sure the water stays where it's supposed to is also an interesting undertaking.
It is. So these aquariums are made with aquatic concrete and acrylic, so they have a waterproofing admixture to keep the water contained.
Okay, now how do you keep a shark happy? That's the biggest question, because I would like to keep all the sharks that are here happy.
We work to keep every animal happy. So every animal has top-of-the-line health care. It's fed restaurant-quality seafood, which means it eats better than me. So yeah, these animals all eat better than me. And then just, you know, making sure that the environment they live in is just a really great environment.
All right, so why should St. Louisans be excited about this aquarium?
Well, I think it's very unique. For years, St. Louis always wanted to have an aquarium. We're the largest city that doesn't have one. So in the fall of 2019, we'll have a very, very good aquarium.
Well, it was awesome. You know, we got to walk through there, kind of scope it out, see where everything is going to go. But more than just the aquarium, you've kind of made this a whole family-friendly or date night experience with the food and other activities.
Yeah, that's actually right. This is very much like the Gaylord hotels, like Operaland. So it's not just a hotel convention center. It has a Ferris wheel, carousel, putt-putt course, has ropes course, mirror maze, and the aquarium. So you can come down here and spend half a day or a whole day or even a weekend.
Wow, Debbie, I love that. I can't wait to see that.
I know you really have to sort of use your imagination at this point, but from the renderings, it's going to be amazing.
Yeah.
So they said the entertainment complex under the train shed will be up by this summer with a Ferris wheel and food trucks, and then the aquarium should be done by the end of the year. It's going to really be spectacular.
Can't wait.
I know, I'm really looking forward to it. Well, we're also looking forward to learning more about our next guest. Most people know Jeff Burton from The Point, and this is kind of a first. Here we are on the set of STL TV, and we have 3 radio people here.
Is that good?
I don't know, I think so. But we're going to talk not about The Point, but about a book that he's recently published.
And it's a book for kids.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's. Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. It is one of those things that was just bouncing around in my head forever. You know how everybody goes, "Oh man, I can write a book. I can write a book," and I actually wound up doing it. It's kind of cool. And it's a children's book. It's kind of a picture book with a lot of stuff to catch the eye for the child. And I wanted to do it on hardbound too, so that it's anybody who's been a parent and has done this, you know, so it's not falling over. It's a little easier to read. So it's called The Watering Hole, and I'm really, really super proud of it. I really am.
Okay, so before we get to what the actual book is about, you said you'd wanted to write it. I mean, what's the thought process of Jeff Burton working at The Point and thinking, I'm going to write a children's book?
That has been a bit of a pushback, because if you listen to the show at all,
you don't do children's radio.
No, if you listen to the show at all, I would definitely be the last person on the show to write a children's book, because it is it's certainly not KMOX. Let's put it that way on the show. How it came about, I'm not really sure, other than I run and I trail run and I trail hike and I have a motorcycle there, and I do all those things alone. So these things just, you know, when you're by yourself, you just have things knocking around in between your ears. And I always wanted to do a children's book, first of all. I have 2 kids and I love them very much. And I remember reading these kinds of books to them when they were younger. And it's one of those things where this day and age, we really need this sort of message. And the message is that people who, and in this case animals, that wouldn't normally get along have to turn towards each other to solve a problem. And I think whether it's animals in the forest or humans on Earth, I think that's a pretty good message to give kids early on.
Is that where the name of the book comes from, The Watering Hole? Because that's where the group would gather, right? People don't know each other but gather.
If I told you the reason for the title, it would give away the ending, and I don't want to spoiler alert. You know what I'm saying? But I mean, absolutely, it's a bunch of sibling animals that are playing in the woods forever, and they get very, very thirsty, and none of them can find a water source. And then we have a hero of an elephant that helps everybody out. So
do you think that this thought came to you because, you know, we've been talking a lot about the last few years and how our nation seems divided, and nobody wants to work with the people who are over there because we're over here?
Yeah, these animals, to me at least, are literally on the opposite sides of the aisle. really, truly. And I don't know about you guys, but I've had friendships can be fractured when the political climate is the way it is. As you said, no matter which side you are on. And I don't care what side you're on, there's more than two sides, as we both know, but it doesn't matter which side you're on. When in times of crisis, we need to turn towards each other, and that is the message.
So there are animal stereotypes.
Absolutely, for sure, absolutely.
Because do you think that this current climate where we are so divided, I guess we're silly to think that that doesn't trickle down to our children.
Absolutely, and you know, there was a song one time that said that they're our future, I believe. And why not start now by saying, hey, look, I don't care if this animal or this human is different from you, has different political views or whatever. If you need to find water, turn to that person. Or if you need to solve a problem, you know, in everyday life, turn to that person. It doesn't matter their political affiliation, the color of their skin, their sexual orientation, any of that stuff. If you need a problem, turn to another human, and we should be able to help each other out.
You know, one of the great parts of your book, aside from your writing and everything,
thank you,
is the illustrations.
Yeah.
And I think you should give a shout out to the person that did that.
Brooke really, really wanted to be here, but she could not be here. She has like 700 kids, so she couldn't be here this evening or today because she's taking care of them and she also works. But she is amazing, and also Shane, the publisher, Out the Window Books. Brooke is one of those people that in this day and age, you and I, Debbie, can talk with each other for 2 or 3 months via email and never actually meet. I didn't even meet Brooke until this book was already done, and it was at our first signing. We just communicated via email, and she nailed every single character. I wanted the book to be very visually, you know, appealing to a child, obviously, and she nailed it. She really did.
So how was the process for you, never having done a children's book before? Did you come up with the idea and you pitched it to someone, or, you know, for people watching who've always thought, oh, I'd love to do that?
Yeah.
Any tips?
Yeah, the first thing is I reached out to people that have already been published. And they, a couple of people especially, gave me some websites with literary agents where you send a mock-up and say, hey, would you like to represent this book? The problem with that was, and if you're a guy sitting in St. Louis, Missouri trying to do this, this is all the big publishers that get hundreds of transcripts and manuscripts every single day. So I would get lost in that shuffle. So it was, hey, let's dial it back and go somebody more local. And I was very, very lucky to be able to have a radio show to talk about it on the air. A listener who was also a publisher went, hey, let's talk about this, and that's how it came about.
And how'd you get the inspiration for the storyline?
The storyline itself, you know what? It's one of those things that was such a big haze, and it was over time. Getting back to your question about how it got put together, you do some of it and you put it aside for a little while, and then you come back to it. So the storyline was really kind of pieced together, and I wanted to use animals that were cute for the kids and animals that wouldn't necessarily always be friends. So I kind of piecemealed it that way together. And I wanted the hero to be a big, cute elephant.
So you probably, when you do a book signing or an event, have two completely different audiences.
Yes.
You've got kids who may have no idea who you are, and they're looking at you as the person who did this book, and then their parents who may listen to you on the radio.
Yeah, the neat thing about the parents that listen to me on the radio, again, not KMOX, and I love KMOX, just different animals, as you know, they will bring their kids to a book signing, and their kids will meet me for the first time, because most of the stuff that I do, you don't bring kids to necessarily. So it's kind of nice to see listeners that I've met 100 times, but meet their children for the first time, and to see the kids' reaction to the book. I'm
also glad to know that people actually read books. I mean, with paper pages.
Absolutely, absolutely. And one of the neat things, I'm so glad you said that, because another reason why we did hardbound, besides the actual manipulating of the book, is kids love the feel of the book, because it's smooth and it's shiny, and you can't necessarily get that with a computer, I guess.
Yeah, I love books.
Me too.
Me too.
Yeah.
Me too. And that's another great thing about this. I've met people that I would have never known that they have all these books at home, and there's actually parents out there still teaching their kids to pick up books.
But you're not going to tell us how it ends.
They find the water in everybody's family. I mean,
we're going to edit that out.
I don't believe them.
But the water's full of toxin. No, I'm just kidding.
So I imagine people can probably find this online, but was it difficult to get it in stores? Can people find it anywhere?
Very soon, a Ben Franklin in Eureka, Missouri, my hometown, will have 5 or 6 or 4 or 5 copies on their shelves. And I will be tomorrow, Saturday, the 20, I don't know, whatever the Saturday is, from 10 a.m. to noon. I'll be at Balance Coffee in Belleville, Illinois as well.
And did you kind of use your kids to test this out on during the
Mine
process?
are way too old, unfortunately.
Oh.
Yeah.
They were on their phones and
yeah, they were like, can I download it? So, and outthewindowbooks.com also.
All right, outthewindowbooks.com. Yeah. Jeff Burton is an author and, of course, a fellow radio guy.
We'll listen for you on the point.
And as a radio guy and a radio geek, it's so cool to finally meet, especially you, Debbie, because we've never met before, but it's been great talking radio with you too.
Okay,
awesome.
thanks.
No, I mean that, but I've listened to her over the years before I was on the radio at the exact same time as you, so it's nice to put a face to the beautiful voice.
Well, thank you, and it was great to meet you, and of course there's some information on the screen of how to pick up this great book. It was a pleasure to meet Jeff and all of our guests.
And we appreciate them for being here, and we appreciate you at home for watching.
Thanks. Join us next time for St. Louis Presents.